Recently, the federal government launches an ambitious 15-year roadmap for the reform of the water sector in Nigeria, as the move by the federal government to beat the UN SDG target of 100% access to water supply by 2030 intensifies. What immediate-term solution is the government coming up with to address the urgent demand of 52.7 million Nigerians who lack access to potable water and 4.5 million Nigerians living in extreme starvation? It's question time. Welcome to the program. I'm Benga Ashiru. You can also join in this conversation by sending us a comment on our various social media platforms showing on your screen. You recall that Mr. President made an international appeal to save the receding Lake Chad Basin. What happened to the $14 billion intervention plan? The Minister of Water Supply discloses that the first phase of the 15-year water project would need 2.5 trillion naira in such a desperate situation that cries out for intervention. It's rather surprising that the water sector roadmap has taken 10 months before unveiling. In a bid to set the record straight, Channels TV crew had an exclusive interview with the Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu. Join us in this exclusive interview.
I reported for duty at the ministry on 12th of November 2015, and obviously for the first few weeks I had to be briefed by the various departments and agencies. After 2-3 weeks of briefings, I decided to have a retreat with all the key officers so that we could all work together to develop a way forward. We had that retreat between 12th and 13th of December 2015, and it's from then on we came with a 7-point program, 6-point I think, which we now continue to build on until we finally arrived at the roadmap. The roadmap was ready as at May. I had the privilege to present it to His Excellency the President in May, and then I got a final approval to proceed 2-3 weeks later, and we felt that, and we've been working, but we felt the need now to at least tell Nigerians that this is the way we are going. But the truth of the matter is, I believe since March, we've actually been working on this roadmap, because as of March, we set up the Committee on River Basins, which was one of the key things that one of the key areas we wanted to focus on, and they gave us a report in February. And by March and April and May, June, we had already started implementing some of the key issues.
What's the thrust, the focus of this roadmap for the water sector?
A number of things. One is we would want to look at the mandate of the ministry. How do we improve the mandate? How do we enhance it to make the people really push them in the direction that we want to? The direction being that there are two important issues. One, the federal government wants to diversify from oil and has identified agriculture as one of the key areas. And of course, when you're talking of agri, you have to talk of water if we're going to do all year round farming. And the Federal Ministry of Resources, Ministry of Water Resources has, is in custody of most of the major irrigation infrastructure in the country. Two, the other issue would be, had to do with our international obligations, things that have to do with the Sustainable Development Goals, and particularly SDG 6 on water and sanitation. So we also had to find a way to accelerate water supply and sanitation in the country. Three, we talked about that we need to work on the river basins to carry them along in the direction of the thrust of this administration. We also looked at the ways of that projects are being funded and how we can improve on the funding. We inherited a lot of projects, 117 ongoing projects. So we had to prioritize these projects in water supply, in dam and irrigation, so that we can see how we can complete them. A lot of money has been spent on these projects, and they are still not nowhere finished to be able to be beneficial to the people. So these are some of the key things that we have mapped out in the roadmap.
The water sector seems a highly capital-intensive sector, and especially with the recession of the Lake Chad Basin. So how much are we looking at here for the reform of this sector in the country?
The most recent study, rather, which seems to be the most serious study done, is indicated a figure of about $14 billion. Of course, that's, in our view, that study is not enough. More planning needs to be done, and we are working on a number of scenarios. So I wouldn't want to be fixated on this $14 billion. At the end of the day, it might be less, it might be more, depending on the situation. What we are trying to do now, there are so many options that are coming, so many, although the Lake Chad Basin, the member countries of the Lake Chad Basin Commission have zeroed down on this interbasin transfer from Congo Basin to Lake Chad. We felt that maybe, well, recently we've started thinking that could there be alternative options to recharging the Lake Chad? So we're right now working on an international, trying to organize an international conference so that we can get all the experts to come and discuss, and maybe at the end of the day we can be better armed. And when we have the international community all involved, it might be easier for us to mobilize funds eventually on whatever strategy we adopt.
You are embarking on a 15-year roadmap. Isn't that too rather ambitious, considering the perennial problems facing the water sector?
For us, we are looking at, in today's terms, before the devaluation, when we were actually estimated our works, we're looking at like $2.5 trillion naira in the next 15 years spread. So I don't think that is much.
How many Nigerians would have access to clean and potable water before 2019, looking at the immediate term strategy for the water sector roadmap?
We are working on the National Water Resources Bill. The Pt.1 program, the Partnership for Expanded Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, is supposed to address the gaps in water supply in rural areas specifically. And we want to partner with states, local governments, donor agencies, NGOs, corporate organizations, and the communities to be able to expand the water and sanitation delivery. But we are also using it to mobilize the whole country to understand that everybody has to get involved for us to be able to meet the SDGs targets. The Water Resources Bill, what it is supposed to do for us, there is a provision there that allows for regulators in the water sector, which will pave way for private sector involvement in the delivery of water supply. So, for instance, we can have a situation now where a state government, a state water board or FCT water board can take a certain section of its operations and get a private sector company to now run the treatment, run the distribution, collect tariffs, collect the water charges and so on. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at. And when we do that, it will all help us to expand the delivery of water supply so that we can meet the SDGs target.
I don't seem satisfied with your initial response on the percentage of Nigerians that would have access to clean and potable water before 2019, because you said you are coming up with both an immediate term strategy and also long-term strategy. So in the immediate term, before 2019, because your office, you wouldn't be staying more than 2 terms as the Minister of Water Resources. So we can still look at the immediate term strategy before 2019. How many Nigerians do you think would have access to clean and potable water by 2019, taking account of stewardship?
We have a target of 15 years to 2030 to meet SDG.
No, you came up in your roadmap, you came up with both interim, both immediate term strategy and long-term strategy.
That did not apply to water supply. We only mentioned specific that we need to do a certain number of water schemes in the next few years. I don't have the roadmap here. I cannot be able to give you the specific numbers. But if you have the document, I think you will get those figures there. All I can say is that every year there will be incremental steps. The access will be, there will be an increase in access, and our target is we have up to 2030 to achieve the target. But I am hopeful that if our strategy works, we'll be able to attain this target before the next 50 years. That's all I can assure you.
You have a roadmap plan between 2016 to 2030. That's about approximately a 15-year plan. Isn't that rather too ambitious, considering the perennial problems in the water sector?
Why we started having problems in this country is when we started derailing from national plans. You know, when we were younger, we used to have 5-year national development plans, and that was how we were able to achieve a lot of infrastructure development. If you don't have a focus, you will not get there. And for the water sector, it requires a lot of planning. It requires a lot of patience. It's affected by so many things, climate and what have you. So you need to really look at a long horizon. And besides, we have a National Water Resources Master Plan, which was reviewed and is supposed to have started operating last year from 2015 to 2030. So we want to align all our programs with the National Water Resources Master Plan so that they go in tandem.
You have a maximum of 8 years to spend as the Minister of Water Resources. How do you prevent we sliding into the past unpleasant cycle of white elephant projects that never saw the light of day?
I think you need to look at the document. That program is segmented from 2016. There is a program in all the sectors between 2015 and 2016 to 2019. Then we have 2020 to 2025 and 2025 to 2030. So I know right from the onset, I know what I want to achieve during the first tenure of this administration. But I'm hopeful because I came and met a situation on ground, and I hope that Nigeria is changing so that we'll see government as a continuum and we drop political sentiments aside so that when anybody else comes, he already has a program, he has a plan on ground, that all he needs to do is to continue with the plan, because ultimately it's not about me or the next minister taking credit, it's about how much we're able to impact the lives of the people of Nigeria. But I can assure you, I have a focus for the next 4 years out of the 15 years, but I'm making the work less for whoever is going to succeed me so that he can continue where we stopped.
I think at this point it's expedient we look into how we got into this point, how we find ourselves at this desperate level. We understand that it's on record that in the past 15 years that no water project has been completed. And the question many people are asking was it that there wasn't any appropriation for the sector? And who were those responsible for executing these contracts?
Number one, honestly, is the fact that successive administrations didn't really care about the National Water Resources Master Plan. So projects were coming because of who you know or at the whims and caprices of the people in charge. Projects had champions. When they were in government, the projects would be properly funded because they had people to go and lobby to get the appropriation for them. But once these people left, and then the projects had no champion and they were left moribund. You know, they were abandoned. You know, lack of planning, and yes, the way the budgetary system has been and the infusion of constituency projects that have no direct bearing to the mandate of the Ministry of Water Resources are some of the key things that have brought us to this situation.
You may also join in this conversation by sending us your comments on our various social media platforms showing on your screen. Coming up on Question Time.